It's great to be here with you guys. If you would have told me a year and some days ago I'd be sitting in a room in my house, giving my pitch on the computer to a room full of people, I would have been confused, But the reality is, like, this program has seamlessly given me tools to walk through this last year and to really enjoy the program in a different way. And I want to thank you, Chris, for inviting me to be here. Apologize because I'm going to have to dust off a pitch that I haven't given in a few months, but hopefully make it through it. And I think if I don't say anything else, the thing I will say is Alcoholics Anonymous is the only thing that I've found that works to remove the obsession of drinking use. And I don't work a perfect program, and I know a lot of people work different programs, but it's the only thing that I've found that works for me. And I'm not saying you have to do it my way or the next person's way, but in my experience, it's been the only thing that works. And my life today is a result of the program. Period. And I think it's good for me to say that because it's easy for me to forget that when life gets better and I get further from a drink or a drug. I have a tendency to think that I was the one who put all of this together. But the reality is what my life looks like in my control is what I look like the day before I get to Alcoholics Anonymous every time, and it's always a mess and it's always alone. And it's always a smoldering pile of what a life before that was, So I think, with that, I'm going to try to go quick on this, but I characterized my life in 4 categories, But before I started drinking and using, after I started drinking and using, when I found Alcoholics Anonymous, and then when I was actually going to work the program as prescribed by Alcoholics Anonymous, And I think that without having to go too deep into it, I came into this world uncomfortable. I came from a great family. And the circumstances of my life were fine. I was not, and the only reason I say that is that alcoholism? Is it not? I'm not sure, but a lot of what I defined my life by, a lot of the thing that I felt like was chasing me, I've come to realize is kind of garden variety alcoholism. The thing that I came out of the womb sprinting from turns out it's alcoholism, but I didn't know that back then. And I would say by the time I found a drink at 13, I was really thirsty, and I didn't know what I was thirsty for, but I knew I needed something. And I would say that, like, when I found drugs and alcohol, I instantly knew it was the solution. I wasn't good at making it the solution. I was kind of a mess at drinking and using for the first few years. I had this distinct understanding that this was the thing that was going to solve my problem. I just couldn't figure out how to get it right. Not enough, too much. I wanted to get out of my feelings, but I black out instead. I wanted to feel good, but instead I felt bad. And the thing I remember is, like, the minute I touched a drink to my lips or a drug to my body, I knew that was the solution. And I'm not here to disparage my experience with drugs and alcohol either, because it worked for a lot of years, And I would say, like, I can almost guarantee that if drugs and alcohol didn't enter my life would have been a lot shorter, because what it gave me was the idea that I could see past my affliction at that point, and I knew that there was something tragically wrong with me that drugs and alcohol fixed, and I think that it worked, and it worked for a lot of years. And I think that as I progressed into my alcoholism, it began to take over my life, and that was a position that I was perfectly fine with it taking. From the minute I started drinking and using, I knew that it was going to be the most important thing in my life. It probably took about 6 years to actually get there, that it was the only thing that mattered, but it eventually got there. And I think that in all reality, as I started to drink and use more, I started to just take other things out of my life. And at first it was like, like crowded spaces. I don't like being around a lot of people. I'm going to stop doing that. And it was like, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. All right. People in relationship, that shit's kind of messy. I'm going to stop doing that, And then it was like, people that are my family. Okay, I'm not going to be around them. That's a lot of work, and it's hard to drink and use the way I want to and have these people in my life. And before I knew it, it was me and drugs and alcohol, and that was it, And I think that would have been fine if it kept working. There was a long period of time that it was just me and drugs and alcohol. I was perfectly happy. The problem is that the period of time in which I controlled the outcome that came from drugs and alcohol was fleeting. And I think by the time I started ending up in hospitals and rehabs and detoxes, I knew something had changed, but I wasn't convinced it wasn't working. What it took for me was trying a million different ways. And it was like, yeah, that's interesting. Those 12 steps, these 12 principles, the God of your understanding, that's interesting. I'm not there yet, And at the time, a lot of the people I grew up with were at that time where they were dying or they were getting sober. And it was easy for me to look at them and say, I don't have a life that looks like theirs. Yes, I burned down a few relationships. I don't talk to my family, and I live on a porch, and I drink and use from the minute I get up until the minute I go to bed. But it's not that bad, And I played that game for a lot of years. And I think that for me, the idea of a first step made sense. I understood the chaos that came with my lifestyle, but that life and will over to a power that is not me, no, not ready to do it. And I think that what I would do is I come into the rooms, I do a first step, I try to get to 2 and 3, wouldn't get through it, go back out and bounce back and forth. And it's like, if there's one place that if you're here in your first 30 days, if there's one place that's torturous to be as an alcoholic, it's with one foot in your alcoholism and 1 foot in recovery. And I remember that was like 6 or 7 years doing that shit, and it was like there was so much movement in my life and none of it was forward. It was like I build something up and I tear it down. I build something up and I tear it down. And eventually I just stopped building stuff up because I knew I was going to tear it down. And I would literally give people the clause before I got into a relationship with them that it's like I fuck shit up. And sometimes I'm a great person and sometimes I'm a great guy, but I don't have control over the outcome of things. And at the time, I just thought that was my character defect, that I didn't have control of the outcome of things, and I would eventually do that thing. So, and I would say that went on for 6 or 7 years. I got really, really comfortable in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous with not very much time. I got to know a lot of people in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, but could never build much time. And I remember I at the time had moved. I'd gotten sober because I was getting married and I was trying to clean up my life and was able to put together some sober time. And through that experience, was stuck on that second, third step again and ended up going back out. And I was talking to one of my first sponsors, and I said, I don't know what it is, but I'm ready to actually try it, and that wasn't like give your life over to God. It was like, if you're serious about doing it, what I would ask you to do is follow my suggestions every day, and I think at that time, and this was my sober date's 5/15/16, so about 5 years ago. At that time, it wasn't the worst it had ever been. The material side of things was fine. I had at the time a family, I had a job, and things hadn't fully fallen apart. But I knew inside of me, I couldn't sustain doing the things I was going to do. It was either going to be the end of everything or the beginning of something. And I think all of us have some jumping off point like that. And it was like at that moment, the clouds did not part. God did not come down upon me and my life didn't change drastically. It's like I slowly started to work the program one day at a time, and the spiritual experience I've had as a result of that has been slow, and it's been one day at a time. And I think the thing that I've learned is that my life today is not a result of any big action that I take, but living by suggestion, staying close to the community of Alcoholics Anonymous, and continuing to turn my life and my will over to a God of my understanding one day at a time. And I think that let me do a little bit of a time check. All right. I was in a meeting last week, and somebody was sharing, and they were sharing about a life of love and service. And I'm sitting in a position with my sobriety and my life in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's gotten pretty comfortable. I feel a little bit like a late bloomer in life. I figured out that if I can apply these principles in this program to my life, I can actually get the things I could never get before. I could keep the job, I could keep the family, I could have a child, I could have money in the bank. And what I started to realize is what I'm doing is I'm utilizing the tools of this program, my relationships within it, to get the things that my ego wants, that my selfishness wants, that my self-seeking wants. And this person was talking about, for us to actually receive the promises, to actually receive serenity, it has to come to submitting to a life of love and service. And I've heard that before. I've heard the fact that as we begin this journey, that it ultimately ends with a life that either moves towards love and service or it moves back towards the drink. And I feel like I was at that blissful kind of sophomore year where I figured out my way around, and I have some tools to get by. But the reality is, if I really check myself, I am using the tools of Alcoholics Anonymous to give Kyle a better life, and to keep the things I want, to get the things I don't have. If I really weigh myself against the standard of love and service, I would say I have a long way to go. And I think as an alcoholic, it's easy to say, this is the ideal, this is how far off I am. Aren't I shitty? But I think the reality is that the journey that we're on is if we want true satisfaction, if we want true serenity, it's going to come from us giving of ourselves to this program and helping other alcoholics in the struggle of recovery. And I think that for me was something that kind of really hit me between the eyes, because the truth is I'm pretty happy and pretty content with the life that I have here in Alcoholics Anonymous. But for me to keep my seat means for me to be in a position of love and service. And that the two worlds for me. It's there's love and service on one hand, and then there's ego, fear, and self-seeking on the other hand. And my alcoholism has always looked like ego, selfishness, self-seeking, fear. And what I've just been trying to do of late is, what would it look like to act in love, to act in service, to act as if I'm not threatened. And what I've started to realize is this is not a huge change in my life. It's me beginning to put my hand out, to reach my hand out in a way that I haven't been accustomed to in this last year. And so I think for me, the topic tonight, and something that I've been wrestling with a lot, is as we get sober, what does the life of love and service look like? If the book describes that the promises and the serenity that we're looking for is going to come through that life, what does that look like for us? And I think that the place that I'm describing that I'm at today is not going to be the place that I'm at tomorrow, a year from now, 10 years from now. But the thing I am interested in is moving more towards a spiritual life that helps other alcoholics and ultimately allows me to be open to experiencing more, loving more, and caring more for the people in my life. So I want to thank you guys for having me out. And so the topic is love and service. And let me go back to the format real quick. She thinks